I remember about 8 or 9 years ago, I was a police sergeant for LAPD, and they came down with this pursuit policy where we could no longer pursue people who simply ran from us. And let me tell you, everybody was quite upset. It was another tool that had been taken from the officers on the street. So how exactly do you lead when you're not in charge? A lot of people ask me this for a bunch of different reasons. Sometimes it's because they want to make a bigger impact with their team. Sometimes it's because they want to get promoted, and sometimes it's just because they have a boss that sucks. Regardless, you already know there's a difference between being a boss and being a leader. Being a boss or a manager requires you to have a certain position wherever you're working. But being a leader can come from anywhere in the organization. And many times, if you ultimately want to be that boss, of course you want to be a better one, right? You actually have to step into that leadership role so that you can get recognized to be put into that position. But what do you do if you're not in that position yet and you still want to lead? That is the purpose of today's video. Are you ready? Let's go. So welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. We help parents excel personally and professionally without burning themselves out or sacrificing family time. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. But let's jump right in to how to lead when you're not in charge. So obviously being a leader has a lot of great benefits. I mean, you can be the leader that your organization or your team or even your family needs right now more than ever. You can also lead your boss to make better decisions. And lastly, this can actually help you financially, whether it's you getting promoted faster or you just making a bigger impact. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. Which one are you being most pulled towards right now? Now, before we dive into these 3 steps, I want to let you know that sometimes you are going to have terrible bosses, but also that's your greatest opportunity of all. Because what happens when you start to show up as the leader that your organization needs more than ever? Well, more than likely, you're going to eventually get your boss's job. But even if you don't, you're still going to be making a huge impact and get recognized for the hard work you're putting in. So let's jump right into the steps. Starting with step number 1. I mean, where else would we start? That's to begin with the end in mind. So first, you have to identify what is the goal of your boss. This could also be the goal of your company. One of the most important jobs we have as leaders is to set the vision. Now, people call this different things. It could be your goals. It could be what you want to create in the world. Whatever that is, it's painting a clear picture of where you want to go so that you can reverse engineer the steps to get there. You'd be amazed how many managers and how many bosses don't even know about this. Sometimes even just painting a clear picture of what everybody wants is enough to be recognized as the leader. So what are some of the outcomes that they want? What is that end result that they want to be able to create? If a policy comes down, what is the goal of that specific policy? Now, here's a little bit of a hint. You should probably just ask. So many times we come up with all of these stories about what the end goals and what the visions are. And in reality, all we have to do is slow down enough and just ask. What's incredibly powerful about this is, as a leader, if you ask people what they truly want and you give them the time and space to tell you, it's incredible how much influence you will gain just from merely asking and then really listening. Now, before we dive into step number 2, if you're enjoying this content, definitely hit the like button and subscribe for more videos just like this. So step number 2 is now come up with a plan to actually achieve that goal. Now, here's what's crazy as a leader. When you find out what the boss or the people at the top want, and you know what the people who are actually putting in the work to do those things want, you can find the beautiful place in the middle where everybody gets what they want. Most times, bosses aren't thinking like that. They're only thinking one-sided. But if you're a true leader, you can find where those two overlap so that everybody wins. Now, you get to decide whether or not you communicate this with your boss or with the people above you, but I would highly suggest you do that and even ask for their feedback. Once again, it's incredible the amount of influence you can gain just by simply asking for feedback, even if you don't take any of it and put it into action. Step 3 is help paint a picture of why this is best for the entire team. So now you've been able to identify what the boss actually wants. You've created a plan now so that you can go out and achieve it. Now it's time to communicate that message to everybody. Yet another thing that bosses and managers struggle with a lot is communication. Now, this is critically important because it bridges the gap between what the boss wants and what everybody else on the team wants. Now, when you do this, not only will you be recognized as the amazing leader you are, you'll actually help the team perform better than ever. How many times have you been on a team where the people who run the organization and the people on the team are fighting, and because of that, it actually slows everybody down? Now, when you have the team performing at this level, it will change the game forever. Now, let me give you an example. I remember about 8 or 9 years ago, I was a police sergeant for LAPD, and they came down with this pursuit policy where we could no longer pursue people who simply ran from us. And let me tell you, everybody was quite upset. It was another tool that had been taken from the officers on the street. Now, me being a supervisor, first I have to identify why even did this policy come down? And so talking to the higher ups, it's because there were so many times we were being put into situations that were dangerous for us and dangerous for the citizens that had little to no rewards at the end. It could simply be somebody was running from us because they didn't have a driver's license, and yet they were blowing through red lights and putting other people's lives in jeopardy. So when I found out about that, I started to ask, okay, what do we really want here? We want to apprehend criminals in the most safest and effective ways, not only for us, but for the citizens. Next came the communication part. I still remember in roll call having this conversation. It started with, guys, I totally get it. When I first heard about this policy, I was also a little bit upset about it. I really thought, man, they're really trying to handcuff us yet again. But when I dove in deeper and I started to realize that a lot of the people that we do chase that we have no information on other than they just ran from us, they would be involved in traffic collisions, officers would get injured, citizens would get hurt, and all in the end, some of those ended up being for not having a driver's license or very small things that did not warrant the danger to the public and the danger to us. Then I explained the reason behind this wasn't to handcuff us. It was there to protect us both civilly and personally so that not only we didn't hurt ourselves, but we didn't hurt anybody else. And when I explained it to them, the amount of buy-in was much higher than if I had just come in and said, this is the policy, this is what we're doing. And this really gave me the opportunity to shine. Was it a difficult conversation? Absolutely. Did everybody agree with me? Absolutely not. But I still remember after that being thanked for my approach in roll call that day, because even though everybody didn't agree, they understood why it was put in place. So now that you have these 3 steps to be able to lead when you're not the boss, you may be wondering how to create an environment where people actually feel safe enough to share critical information with you, whether it's as a parent or in a leadership role that you have. Don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this video. It's really talking about how to create psychological safety so that people feel comfortable sharing whatever it is that they need to share with you. It is critical to avoid being blindsided. Be sure and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and keep leading from the front. Bye, everybody.